joining me in this telecast, in this special panel, as we say, Indian women lead from the front. Whether with courage as widows that we saw in Pahalgam or women in uniform that we have been witnessing in the press briefings. Both sides here, I'm joined by Squadron Leader Ginny Chaudhary, as a defense expert now has served in the forces, Group Captain Manjula Katoch. Okay, Manjula Katoch. All right, so defense expert as joining me. And this, remember, is very important because at this juncture, these women have served in the forces. I want to first ask you, Ginny, about the kind of response that you've seen. Let's talk about women in uniform, women who watched horror in Pahalgam, and the courage that I've seen come across in these times as these terrorist names are being confirmed. Do you think it's a reflection of eventually about a united India, a strong India, where women are not really bechara?
Absolutely, Pooja. See, if you see, as the name was given to the Operation Sindoor, and we have been talking about this like from 2-3 days, why the name was given. So, apart from this, since the briefing has been covered by 2 women officers, and that too from different faith. So this is the indication, this is a message to the entire world that our women are not bechara. We are not abla naris anymore. And if you see today in Air Force or Army or Navy, our combat units are being commanded by women officers. See, when I retired, I was also in one of the combat units. I also served in one of the combat units. So this is the state, and a message has been sent across very clearly, the way we are defending and the way we are already also getting offensive in our views of the actions which we have taken against Pakistan.
Very important. I want to bring in Captain Manjula Katoch here. When we look at these names of these terrorists, I'm sure you must have heard these names over the years from IC-814, and the fact that they had such security and protection in Bahawalpur, in Muridke, supposedly banned organization. How do you look at this strike, victory, and a united synergy of the Indian Armed Forces with the political will?
Absolutely, Pooja. It is a commendable thing, and it cannot come from isolation, you know. It has to be when everybody is working together. So the first thing first, we must applaud our technical superiority. How our operation is being so much focused, and so, you know, it is so focused and it is so precision was there in our operation. That's very commendable. And India has certainly a cutting edge warfare today in today's time. So the kinds of targets that we have chosen are very important, and a lot of mind has gone into it. And not only the selection of the targets, but also the execution. So here we must commend the AD also, Air Defense Warfare of Armed Forces. That's also very important. And the precision they have shown in this operation is highly commendable. And yes, our Defense Minister very rightly said that we are not targeting any random person
or civilians.
Absolutely, he very clearly he mentioned that Jin mohi mara, tin mohi mare. We really know who our target is. So our target is terrorism. Our target is not any community. Our target is not any religion. Our target is terrorism, and all the names that you have flashed are against our sovereignty of India. Absolutely.
Captain Manjula, because look at the distress and anger we all faced after Pahalgam massacre, and yet the professionalism by our Indian military to ensure that in turn we do hit. We'll teach them a lesson, but it will be to the terrorists and now to the military installations. Squadron Leader Ginny, I want to bring you in here. The Indian Air Force's performance, incredible to say the least. Of course, it's all about the three and the tri-services, but with the Indian Air Force, the strikes, the precision that is as much needed, it's as much about technical superiority, but I'm looking at specifically the effort, the strategy that has gone in. Tell us about at times like these, the decision-making process and how we ensured the precision that came in with our missiles.
See, certainly when we talk about winning the war, we talk about air superiority. But when it comes to planning and when it comes to execution and strategy planning, so all 3 forces sit together and then they plan. See, sitting at this chair, I cannot comment on how they have planned the strategies and all, because we have more experienced people sitting over there, and the results, like you see, the way their targets have been destroyed.
Correct.
This is a clear-cut example of how our strategies are performing so well, along with the assets we have, be it in Air Force, Army or Navy, whatever assets have been used till date. And also, if you see that initially on 7th May when it started, our targets were never the military installations. Our targets were the terrorist camps. So this clearly states that we never provoked any war. So as in the briefing also, it was clearly mentioned in MEA briefing as well. We have taken a very proportionate and a very measured steps towards this escalation, you can say escalation or whatever. So it has been provoked from that side. And if you talk about technical superiority and see, right now we are not fighting a conventional war, but eventually, yes, everything ends to that. Today, we are fighting a technological war. You see the way Air Force, the way our armed forces have used their loiter munitions on the second day, and the way the targets were destroyed, it completely changed the game. And those loiter munition, I'll tell you, it's not only about Air Force. Even Army was using them. Army was using what we call Atmanirbhar Bharat. Army was using indigenously procured LMs in that. So that is a state, and I think it is high time for Pakistan to understand, to,
That's a good statement. This has been as much, I think, it's about Atmanirbhar Bharat that we have shown, rather than the Chinese military hardware that either fails to detonate, like we've seen in Hoshiarpur PL-15 missile, or, of course, with regard to even their HQ-9 and HQ-16 systems that have received damage and all. Captain Manjula, when you look at these visuals coming in, of course, we talk about the Indian Air Force, but then about the boots on the ground. The artillery fire, that mortar shelling along the line of control, that has to be responded by the personnel, and that is reflective of the effort as much. You're looking at a united force on a high alert, activated completely, and the kind of equipment, again, as we talk about the air defense systems on one side, but eventually it is the boots on the ground speaking as well, especially along LOC and IB.
Absolutely, Pooja. As I said, and I'll reiterate that wars are not won only by a single entity. We all have to come together, and certainly we all work together. It's not only Army, Navy, Air Force. It's about, see, these days, as she said, Guinea said that it is not a conventional warfare. It is so much of psychological warfare also. So we are only talking about the armed forces, and I want to put in to the table that it is not only the armed forces, even the normal public also has a very, very big role to play.
How is that? Can you explain that to us? What do you mean when we talk about public's importance as well at this time as much of the armed forces at the border?
Absolutely. First and foremost, the public has to understand that we are all in very, very safe hands. We have best of the armed forces who are defending us there at the borders. So we should not panic. We just should not panic. We should stay calm. We should stay poised. And these are the days of, cyber things, warfare coming up. So we have to be very, very particular in that. And, disciplined information is very important. We should not fall prey to the misinformation or maybe some kind of propaganda. We should refrain from getting into some kind of propaganda. And as a normal citizen, I would like to say that it's not that we can, fight for our nation only if we have some kind of weapon in our hand. No, it's not important. But wherever we are, we have to be very, very calm, composed. We should take the...
Be cautious
absolutely,
in what you
vigilant.
Share, because Pakistan is indulging in propagandas, and I'll talk about that as much. But like we were talking to Captain Manjula Katoj, Indian Army, remember, at this juncture, you must have heard of artillery fire, mortar shelling along the LOC international border, especially in Jammu region. Befitting response, you must have heard a number of times. What does that mean? Indian Army has officially released this video. Let's take a look at that. Captain Manjula, do you think this is as much about boosting the morale of the forces, a reflection as much to the public, but also how does this make you feel, you know, missing the uniform at this juncture, but also realizing the effort at the border?
Absolutely. Whenever such kind of times comes, we always miss our uniforms. That's true. But as I said, I'll reiterate, wearing uniform is not important. Each one of the citizen is as much important for the nation today as we in the uniform services are. So yes, the morale of the citizens, the morale of the country should always remain high, because the soldier who is fighting there at the border, he is also looking towards us as we are looking up to that soldier. So we need to stay united, and we need to really, you know, have this very high morale. And yes, the videos like this certainly raise our morale very high.
What is your assessment of videos like this? I see, because unlike earlier, Indian Armed Forces have always done their job. They needn't show or prove it to anyone. And yet there's a reason these videos are surfacing. What is your assessment? Why do you think, whether it's the Army, whether it's the Air Force, more and more videos, do you think it's a part of communication warfare that we see these videos coming for?
Absolutely, Pooja. See, what Pakistan doing right now is fighting a psychological warfare. In our terms, we call it psychops. Exactly. So what they're doing is they're spreading misinformation. So that these videos are counter to that misinformation. I always say, if armed forces are the backbone of our country, our public, our civilians are the heart. तो अगर दिल ही कमजोर पड़ जाएगा तो कैसे लड़ेंगे, right? So the point here is that it is for us to understand that we are there because you guys trust us. So that trust needs to be there, and we'll continue to perform. And the performance, there is no second thought that we are performing very well, correctly. The targets, the destruction, everything is happening. Everything is in place. Nobody has to worry about anything. Just keep that trust on, because that person who is at the border, he is there. His confidence is the public, the Indians, because this is the time we need to be united.
So if there's a video like this by the Indian Army to not only, of course, boost the morale, but also to ensure the public realizes that there's a reason that we sleep peacefully. At 1:40, when there were Pakistan firing missiles at us, Indian Armed Forces were on the job in how. Now, this visual is very important. At the press briefing from the Ministry of Defence and External Affairs Ministry, these videos were shown, these images. These are from the Armed Forces base in Sirsa, for example, Suratgarh as well. Now, this was, you would wonder, why were these visuals being shown with a timestamp to prove that our bases, air base, army bases, are running just fine, fully functional, because Pakistan is trying to indulge in a communication warfare to say that Indian military bases have suffered damage. Swarnalika Guinea, what do you make of this video? Do you think it's as important to put out what you have done, how you've performed, but also to debunk these propagandas? Because that's what Pakistan is doing right now, to say that India's military assets have been damaged and how? And India is asking where? Our bases are all running fine.
This is a clear-cut proof that whatever propaganda or whatever misinformation has been delivered by Pakistan and their civilians, or whatever is floating on the... Don't trust anything just like that. Only if that information is coming from an authentic platform, trust that information. So this is the proof that that Pakistan is a liar country, and we have already proved it. And these are again, you know, videos.
And they will not accept their domestic losses. So what they are doing is trying to put it on India, pin it on us, and India says, but here's the timestamp video. What are you talking about? This is very important, remember. We were at a juncture like this in 2025. It's not only about fight on the ground, in the air, in the sea. It's as much about online and communication warfare. Look at that. Now, what did India strike? In reality, we have the thermal imagery, the satellite images. We did destroy Pakistan posts. Heavy damage inflicted in several areas. 8 bases in total, different locations across cities. Pakistan Post 3, look at that. Now we are looking at Sialkot. We are looking at the international border areas. And this is not just about the Indian Air Force. It's as much about the Indian Army, the BSF. This is a united effort, remember, by all our armed forces. So you're looking at different visuals coming in India this time, ensuring to speak with evidence. We didn't have to, but this is to ensure that the world is watching right now. We are putting evidence of what has been struck, Pakistan is without any evidence claiming that Indian military targets have been hit. Captain Manjula Katoch, when you look at these visuals, it's incredible to be able to have these images as evidence, as proof. India can always take this narrative when it comes to the international platforms, because we have to prove that the terror targets have been hit and military installations, only because these military installations were being used, or misused, must I say, to hit civilian infrastructure in India and our strategic targets.
Absolutely, Pooja. So this is what I was talking about, the tactical brilliance of Indian Armed Forces. We have selected these targets because they are high-value targets. So these are the places from where all the, these are the launch pads, in fact. So it's, we always say, always attack the root cause.
Yes.
So this is what Indian Armed Forces has done, that we have selected the targets, which are very, very high value targets, and we have neutralized these launch pads. That's a wonderful and commendable operation from our side. And we must, pat our backs for that.
Like I asked, my final question then to you as well on that, the question I asked to Squadron Leader Guinea as well. When you look at these visuals of women in the uniform leading the press briefing, and even in some very difficult moments putting up a brave front, do you think it's also an important messaging that we look at when you look at Colonel Sophia Qureshi, Wing Commander Vyomika Singh, while these operations are going on, they give out the details. Do you think that posturing is also important?
Absolutely, and this shows that, the transparency that Indian Armed Forces has, the inclusiveness in the defense services, that women forces are also as much included in all the decision making and in all the operations as much the male forces are.
They
so
lead,
it speaks about the inclusion.
Yes. Incredible moment of pride, but really, I believe, as the government has been saying, Operation Sindoor is ongoing. And these two women have contributed in so many ways for a safe and secure India. I want to thank both of you. And I'm sure once a soldier, always a soldier in life. And thank you for staying with us, giving us your perspective. Squadron Leader Guinea Chaudhary and Captain Manjula Katoch.